We gather here tonight to bring women back to their rightful place.
The Testaments, a new Hulu original series from the executive producers of The Handmaid's Tale.
It's easier to accept a story than believe that the people around you are monsters.
The battle isn't over.
There comes a time when you have to take action, when you have to choose your own destiny.
Never quite as it seems.
Watch the new Hulu original series, The Testaments, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from okay to very high. Know your sleep score with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Last night, you spent 2 hours deciding what to wear to the party. This morning, it'll take you 2 minutes to list it on Depop and make your money back. Just grab your phone, snap a few photos, and we'll take care of the rest. The sheer dress and platform heels you'll never wear again? There's a birthday girl searching for them right now. Your one-and-done look is about to pay for your next night out. Or at least the ride home. Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Hello everyone and welcome to Haway the podcast. It's Gavin. You join us for this week's Q&A. We're back with another Q&A episode. It's been a little while since we last did one because of course we haven't had a game since we thumped the visitors, the hosts, whatever we're calling them these days, in our last outing. But we do play Spurs at the weekend and we thought it was a good time to get back on track with a bit of chat around that game and all the other things going on at Sunderland at the minute. So we've got a list of questions. Thank you to everyone who replied over on X. I know that not everybody who listens to the pod is on X. If you do want to get questions in for future episodes, you can email us. We are Haway the podcast, SAFC@gmail.com. That email address, by the way, is in our show notes below the pod, so you will be able to find it there. So if you want to get questions in future, make sure you hit us up there. But today, our assembled cast are here to chat all about the lads. First off, we've got Johnny Hawley. Hello, mate.
Hello, Gav. How we doing?
Yes, I'm very, very good, mate. Very, very good. Also with us is Andrew Smithson, who has been on more pods than anybody in the last 3 weeks. He's been on everything, hasn't you, mate? Hello.
Hello. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's great. We get more love letters for you, Andrew, than any other contributor. We get loads of people getting in touch. I love Andrew. I love him. I love his silky tones and all this. I send you them all, so you can't deny it. I mean, I do. We do get quite a lot of correspondence from Andrew fans. So fans of Andrew will be delighted you're on this one as well, mate.
Well, that's very kind. And if people ever do get in touch with compliments about the pod, that is always well received. But this international break is clearly getting to people and playing with their minds. So we're nearly there. We're nearly back in action now when we can stop worrying about my silky tones and just concentrate on the football again.
Well, that's it. That's it. And we'll get straight into it, Johnny, with this one from Ben Kluge, who's a regular contributor on these Q&A pods. Thank you very much, Ben, for sending in a question. He says, with Enzo Lefebvre back, and this is a topic you love talking about starting 11s and best 11s and all that. With Lefebvre back, who drops out? We're talking specifically about the weekend, by the way. So with Enzo back, who drops out? To me, it should be Diarra, but I'm expecting Talby will miss out. Personally, I'd play Lefebvre as a central attacking midfield player and give Talby and Rig extended runs on the wings with Diarra on the bench. What do you reckon about that?
Well, I'll allow it because it's talking about the next game specifically. So I'll entertain this discussion. No, I think it's a good question, actually, because it's quite a unique set of circumstances for this game in the sense that obviously Spurs have just appointed De Zerbi. So he is presumably going to, at the very least, be trying something different than what they were doing under Igor Tudor. So, and he himself had only been in post for, what was it? Something like 7 weeks, maybe something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the point being that they've obviously had like a load of upheaval in not that much time. They're in free fall. there's every chance they could be in the bottom three by the time we kick off against them because West Ham play before them. So it's very, very hard to predict what Spurs are going to try and how they're going to line up against us, who's going to be where. So for once, I think it'll be quite hard for Lebris to do his usual trick of, I always bang on about, he's going to pick the team he thinks can win the game and perform best on the day. That's going to be a lot harder to work out. So maybe we will have to sort of look to try and just focus on our own strengths a bit more. And from that point of view, Lefay is absolutely one of our biggest strengths. So if you're building a team with that in mind, I think I agree. Lefay centrally is where you want to see him. I think performance-wise, out of the few who've played there recently, Diarra has maybe not been the most impressive of them. I think Siddiqui in particular's picked his game up in the last couple of weeks as well. I think he'd had a bit of a dip, but I think he's starting to come out on the other side of that now. So yeah, I'd be looking at Lefay in the middle and potentially seeing Diarra drop out, because I think you can make a pretty good case for both Talby and Rig that they should keep the places, particularly Rig. You know, his last two games was brilliant against the hosts, and he was really unlucky not to score against Brighton the week before as well. So yeah, I'd be dropping Lefay into the midfield three alongside Xhaka and Siddiqui, because I think he's been brilliant on the left, don't get us wrong, but I do think that is just, you know, where he's at his absolute best.
Yeah. Chris Days said that if he drops Talby again, can we personally ring him up? I think him is Régis, and ask why, please, lads. So Chris isn't a fan of the idea of dropping Talby, Andrew, but we've had a couple of questions again around the game. Paul Boo Scott, he said, since it's been 3 weeks since the last game, you'd assume we would have some players fit to start who weren't. Would you bring them back on or stick with the starting 11 from the last game? And we also had a question along similar lines from Paul Rackstraw, who said, do you think we will see a similar lineup to the visitors game to reward those who played their part? Thinking in particular Rig, Hertrauder and O'Nien, ignoring his early mistake, who were all outstanding. So it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because we were having, I would say, similar conversations ahead of the Mags game, or the hosts game, sorry. I used that dead name. We were having similar conversations around that game about who should come in. And obviously time has passed, so those lads who I've killed Jonny with that one.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely done there. Calling the Mags the dead name. That's love it. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we were having similar conversations because obviously we didn't know about Nordy, Enzo. I'm using their first names. What am I doing? Nordy Mukiele, Enzo Lefay. Who else was there around that game? Who was a contentious one? I'm trying to think.
Reinildo.
Yeah, Reinildo. We didn't know about
You
Ballard.
can use his first name, Gav. You can use
that's allowed, isn't it? Dan Ballard, we don't know what's going on with him. Obviously, you know, maybe by the time this pod goes out, we'll have heard something about Dan Ballard. But there's a group of core players. Robin Roofs is another one. We don't know about him. If they're available, like, what do you do? Do you just, is it a case by case basis? Do we stay loyal to the players who beat Newcastle? I mean, the hosts, or do we take a more sort of ruthless approach to it? And will Régis take a more ruthless approach to it and just basically pick what he views as the strongest team?
I think that's what Lebris will do. He has shown time and time again that he will pick a side based purely on what he thinks is the strongest option for a particular game. The old school part of me has just somebody just shouting in the back of my head saying, oh, you're not meant to change your winning team. And it does sound ridiculously harsh that some of these lads who've produced an excellent result might drop out. But it's the way the game is now. The squad is there to be used. And the quality of player you've gone through there, Gav, we're talking about real serious top-class players waiting in the wings. So how do you not look to bring some of these players back in? I mean, Jonny was running through that potential midfield. When Diarra was out earlier on in the season, the three of Xhaka, Siddiqui and Lefay were absolutely awesome. So you're bound to want to get them back in the team. And again, I feel harsh at the thought of some of those players might drop out, but we're in the big time now, and we're wanting to not just become established in this division, but potentially become one of the stronger sides. And to do that, you've got to try and judge things on the not the game that's just happened, the game that comes. And the brilliant thing is that yeah, if these lads waiting in the wings aren't quite ready yet, no problem at all if we do stick with that 11, because they were phenomenal 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really torn on this. I genuinely don't know what I would do. I think I know what he'll do, which is he will pick what he views as the best team on the day. He's not going to do what he did at Newcastle, where he didn't know what his best team would be on the day and just focus on the group he did have. I think he's going to have a lot clearer view on it going into this one. And it's such a big game when you consider the rest of the season. And we've had a few questions around.
Sorry, can I just quickly just final point on that, by the way, about who should we obviously be prioritising in selection, right? There's been a few instances this season where the sort of high profile games where managers have made some odd decisions in terms of Mikel Arteta starting his second choice keeper in the cup final. Keeper then commits a bit of a howler, they lose the game. The scrutiny's immediately on you, and it's intense because you've brought it on yourself. Tudor at Spurs in that Champions League game where he starts Kinski in goal, who then has the stinker to end all stinkers and comes off after about 20 minutes. And then, his confidence is absolutely ruined. Spurs are under the microscope again, even more so. They're struggling. If you're the Briss, if it was me, if I'm sat in that position, I'd be looking at it thinking, the last thing I want to be doing is making my own life harder for myself. And if you just go, just look at it in isolation, Nordi Mukiele is better than everyone else we've got at right back. Reinildo is better than everyone else we've got at left back. They're quite simple decisions, really, if you take the sort of everything else out of it and just look at who's better. I mean, still a difficult decision, and you've got other things to consider, the player's mentality and confidence and what have you. But yeah, just we see enough where it backfires, I think, to maybe be a little bit cautious and just think sometimes simple is the best.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot to play for, and this feels like an important game, which is kind of what I was going to come on to there is, we win this one, we start dreaming about where we can finish. It's a big game. You lose this one, and you're probably thinking, well, it maybe takes a little bit of the sting out of the season that we feel like we've got momentum at the minute because we've just beat Newcastle, right? Sorry, the hosts. But we have just beaten them, and there is a lot to play for. And we've had a few questions around this. LD, another frequent contributor, thank you very much, has said 21 points to play for. What can we achieve? And we've also had another question from Jack Asbury, and I like this one just because it's like it even exceeds my levels of optimism. He's said, looking at the table, we are at time of writing 6 points off Liverpool in 5th. Is the Champions League a ludicrous dream? Probably, Jack, but I like your way of thinking. But yeah, people are looking ahead slightly here, Andrew, and thinking, well, what can we achieve? And that's the real feeling I've got going into this game, is if we beat Spurs, I know it's not the same Spurs team of 10, 15 years ago, whatever. They have struggled, but they're a threat. They've got proper top-level quality in their team. They've just changed the manager, so that changes the whole outlook of the game. If you can beat them, that then kind of sends a message to the teams around us that Sunderland are playing without fear, and we're going for the top 8. And I don't know. Yeah, the general kind of question, I guess, is where do you see this going? Are you thinking we beat Spurs, it's sky's the limit, or if we lose to Spurs, it's kind of season over? Like, how are you feeling about it all?
I think, I've thought for a long time that the sky's the limit for us. I'm not trying to sound like a smart ass, but ever since the first few weeks of the season, I've thought, why not have a push for Europe? We're seeing so many clubs like Spurs, who you'd usually expect to be up in that top 8, really struggle. So why can't we try and nip in and make the most of their struggles and make the most of the good squad we've had? I don't think it's do or die just yet. I think there's another couple of potentially winnable games after we play Spurs, but yeah, it would certainly give us a real head start and really build on the momentum of the win against the hosts / visitors. So, so it's an important game. It is an important game. It's not final chance for us, but I'd be disappointed if we didn't target this as picking up a win, given how the two teams are going. And just quite interesting there to think that the last time Lebris went up against De Zerbi, do you remember that game we played at Bradford against Marseille prior to the start of last season? I think De Zerbi was in charge of Marseille then. Me and my mate walking out afterwards, quite pleased with a 2-2 draw, overheard some old boy behind us going, it's going to be a season of struggle under this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'd love to know what that guy thinks now, because we're now talking about Lebris potentially getting us in the Champions League. So for a guy who doesn't know what he's doing, he's a pretty fluky fella, like.
Aye.
I'd hate to see him if he did know what he was doing, if this is him without a clue. Bloody hell, he'd be Pep Guardiola if he knew what he was doing.
Martin Ray has sent in a question, Johnny, along similar lines. Will the season go to the final game and follow the till the end mantra where we finish above the visitors and grab a European spot, or will we fall just short? Get your crystal ball out, Johnny. What we're going to do?
No, listen, I think Andrew kind of almost half answered this himself, actually. This game against Spurs is going to be massively telling of what we're going to do for the rest of the season, I think, because it'll show us where the squad's heads are at and where the motivation levels are. Because I think if we can get ourselves properly up and motivated for the next game, we beat the hosts / the visitors, then we had 3 weeks to kind of bask in it, enjoy it, let it kind of percolate amongst the club and the fan base. Now we have to go again. We've had some time off. Some players have gone to internationals. Some players have got back to fitness. Everything in theory is now coming together for us to make what he just said come true. Everything's there for us if we want it to push on now, go for as many wins as we can. And I thought, again, Andrew was totally right in saying, let's not forget, it's not do or die yet. Nobody would say that we have to win every game from now to the end of the season to sneak 8th. I wouldn't have thought. So plenty can happen. There's still a lot of football to be played, but I think we'll see pretty quickly whether we're in with a chance or not. Because if we turn up against Spurs, and then I think we've got Forest and we've got Wolves, and we've got a lot of potentially winnable games, but without that proper motivation, that proper desire and intensity that we've shown in some of the bigger games this season, when survival's been on the line or the derby's been on the line, we've stepped up. Now it's looking upwards rather than behind us, and that's a very different, it's a different feeling, it's a different atmosphere, it's a different type of pressure that the players will be feeling. So we'll see if they can cope with it, and if they start this run well, I don't see any reason why we can't do both in terms of finishing above the Mags. Sorry, dead named them the hosts, but in terms of finishing above them lot and getting into Europe. To be honest, I think if we do one, we've probably done the other by default, because they're, as much as we hate them, they're still not a bad team. And now they're out of all the other competitions. Ha 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 ha. They've only got the league to focus on. They'll probably pick up a bit. So, it's not going to be easy. But like I say, everything's there for us if we want it. It's about now over to the players, basically. Let's see what you're made of.
Apocalypse Now, Andrew, has said, are we playing it cool like beating the Mags as routine now, or giving the lads a special victorious welcome back to the stadium? What do you think? Because I feel like we've talked about this in the last couple of weeks, but I mentioned, I think on another pod that we did, one of the billion we've done over the international break, that I like the way that we handled the Diarra returning back from AFCON thing, and he got a bit of attention, and it was just reading the names out. It came up on the screen, Africa Cup of Nations winner Habib Diarra, and he got a big applause, and then he goes and basically scores 2 goals against Burnley and has his best game for Sunderland. Like, it would make sense, surely, wouldn't it? We've got to reference it even if it's just the announcer saying, "Welcome back, your Derby winning Sunderland team." It's going to get the crowd up, isn't it? You've got to do something.
I think it would be easier to do something had there not been so much time elapsed. The fact that it's been a couple of weeks since then might mean 1 or 2 people just need a little reminder. So yeah, Tolby could get a double because they could congratulate Tolby on his backdated AFCON win now.
Yeah.
Then him and Diarra get stretched off because they've come to blows with each other and fight to the death.
Yeah. Oh, now there's a rumour. If one of them misses out against Tottenham, it's that'll go like wildfire, that one. And then say, oh, and also he's the youngest person to ever score in a weird time derby. You know, if he's not flying after that, I don't know. I mean, if you pick up the programme, I imagine there'll be a couple of like great photos from the day, and yeah, don't know, maybe down in the concourses, just show a few highlights again, get people buzzing. I mean, wins are always going to be remembered in derbies, so I don't think there's anything wrong with just touching upon it. And if that gives us a bit of a boost and get things going, brilliant. And it'll be lovely if everybody settles down and in the first 10 minutes we're all buzzing and that the players feed on it. No problem at all if the club want to mark it in some slight way. We should enjoy the good days, and we've had plenty recently, so yeah.
Absolutely. And one final question before we go to the break, Johnny, from Jason Beattie. He has said, who has the most to prove in the remaining games to set them up for places in the squad for next season, and who do you think is most likely to do so?
That is a good question, actually. I think Hertrauder's got still a bit to prove in terms of nailing down a proper position. You know, his versatility is great, but we've seen him deployed in quite a few different roles. I don't know if he's ever really made one his own. It's been tough as well because, you know, Mukiele has been ahead of him in the pecking order most of the season and things like that. But he's, you know, in some ways playing for his future, whether that be at Sunderland or whether that be somewhere else. Obviously, the Liverpool links from January and what have you. So he's definitely got a lot that he needs to play for. I think Trey Hume is another. Not so much that he needs to play for his future, but he, I think, maybe lost his way might be harsh, but do you know what I mean? He sort of lost his way a bit in the middle of the season where he's ended up playing all these different roles and he's been here, there and everywhere, and he's not had a settled run to show his own best football. So he's another one. Then moving forward up the pitch, Diarra started so well this season, then the injury, then the AFCON. It's been very up and down. So I think contrast with Siddiqui, where Siddiqui, everybody knows now how good he is and he's a mainstay in that midfield. I think Diarra could still yet go to another level potentially in the last few games, show a bit more of his early season form. And then up the top end of the pitch, I mean, take your pick. You know, there's any number of players up that end have got a lot to prove. Chris Rigg needs to prove that he can maintain his standards as a Premier League footballer. Talby needs to prove that he can keep his place in the team. Mayenda's got lots to prove. Wilson Isidore's barely had a sniff. Even Brian Brobby, really, we still haven't seen him string together goal-scoring performances. You know, we've seen him get goals at good times and important goals, but I think there's basically the further up the pitch you go, the more this applies to everybody, basically. Whereas obviously the defence has been largely settled. Roofs we know about. Most of the back four we know about. Even the midfield three, like Jacques, Siddiqui, Enzo, like we know what we're going to get from these lads. But yeah, it's the offensive player, the attacking player. There's ifs, again, like a bit like I said before, if we want it, this run's here for us. If they want it, there's a lot of chances now there for these players that, in theory, the pressure's off because we're basically safe.
Yes, we've got a lot of questions about transfers, squad build-up, people coming and going, and also off-the-pitch stuff to do with Legends Way and David Bruce leaving and stuff. So we'll get to those ones after the break. We'll see you in a minute.
They say you should learn something new every day. Like how you should only drink Jägermeister at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, ice cold. Like those frozen cavemen they find, which makes you wonder, what would a caveman think of Jägermeister? Well, if you served it warm, he'd probably throw it in your face, say, "Unga boonga," and storm off. And nobody wants that. So drink it cold or not at all. Jägermeister. Damn, that's cold. Drink responsibly. Jägermeister liqueur, 35% alcohol by volume. Imported by Mast Jägermeister, U.S., White Plains, New York.
Don't let tax refund worries hold you back. File now with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They'll find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
Introducing Home Care Plus, a new subscription service from Lowe's that helps make life easier by giving members a hand with home maintenance. Let Lowe's tackle the tasks you keep meaning to do, like electric dryer vent cleaning, replacing hard-to-reach light bulbs, and more. Subscribe to Home Care Plus for just $99 a year and consider your to-do list done. Members get more at Lowe's. Available in select zip codes only. Cancel anytime. Non-refundable fee. Product purchase required. Terms and service restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Welcome back to Haway the podcast. And as I said before the break there, we've had a lot of questions about off-field things and transfers and stuff like that. I think we'll start with transfers, actually. We've had this one by email from Mike Sue. I hope I've said that right, Mike. He said, "Thank you for answering my question about the style and quality of football in the Premier League this year. As a Sunderland fan in North Carolina, I was absolutely chuffed to converse about the lads with you all. There's been a lot of chatter about Roofs, Ballard, Siddiqui and Broby potentially getting poached by other clubs. But despite Enzo's latest outrageous highlight, that Derby double Meg assist, there's been comparatively little talk of outside interest in Lafay. Is the apparent lack of interest due solely to his age? And what does your gut say about Enzo's future with us? Will he be with us next year?" Come to you on that one, Johnny. Enzo Lafay, somebody who I think it's safe to say has been a real highlight in the team this season. I think he's improved so much. Like, put him around better players and you're looking at a real top level central midfield player. Somebody, and people might think I'm being ridiculous here, but I could see him playing for Pep's Man City in that Silva role. Like, he is that good. Hard working technical players. They just don't grow on trees, really. So I could definitely see him playing at a higher level. But what do you think about Mike's thoughts there on why he's maybe not being mentioned in the same breath as some of the other lads when it comes to moves away?
Yeah, no, firstly, I mean, I agree with you there, Gav. I think he could basically play for any team in the world, really. Like, not to say that he's sort of in the world-class footballer conversation or anything like that, necessarily, but his profile, Grafton, can play so many roles, so versatile, technical ability, gets goals, like, has a great
mentality. Yeah, which we
mentality,
very rarely talk about. Yeah,
mentality, fantastic, and just such an instinctively good player. Like, knows where to be. Has that kind of sixth sense for football that you cannot really teach. So yeah, I'm surprised there hasn't been more interest. But I imagine a part of it is probably because I don't think he wants to go. A lot was made when we signed him of his connection with Labrice, and I can't remember the outlet now, but I remember reading at the time a long, in-depth interview piece with him where he was talking about his childhood and growing up and sort of losing his father and how Labrice essentially became like a surrogate father figure to him. Like, life is a lot bigger than football, and I think if you develop a connection like that with somebody, and then the football side seems to be marrying up and working perfectly as well, where he's obviously an incredibly valued member of the squad and the fans love him. And I think you can see that he really enjoys being here. So I know there's a lot of people be listening, rolling their eyes going, so naive, still thinks that footballers care about the club and all that. But I genuinely think that unless it was like a Man City or an Arsenal or a whoever who came in and tried to tempt him, I would be shocked if Lafay wasn't turning around to his agent and just saying, "No, I don't want to go. I want to stay here. So just tell everyone where to go." And hopefully that remains the case, because I think more than a lot of people would realise on first glance, he would be incredibly difficult to replace as well.
Yeah. Rye XCL, Andrew has said, and this is the other side of the question that we've just asked, I guess. Do you think we will keep a hold of all of our summer signings, or do you think they will be targeted by bigger clubs? And if so, who do you think will be targeted? Tough question, because we did sign a lot of really good players, but is it too easy an answer to say probably all of them are going to be targeted to some degree?
I think yeah, there's going to be several players that are targeted, and as and when they leave, I'm at least confident with the fact that it'll be on our terms. It's not going to be where we are desperate to keep hold of one individual and we're begging them, and we get into an awful position where we're offering them more money and then they sign it and then they realise my heart's not in it anymore. We've protected ourselves already with contracts, and clubs will know that, and clubs will be aware that if they want to take somebody off our hands, they'll have to pay. Lefay, Jonny speaks very well about him there. I think Lefay's slightly different because he came to us in the Championship, which again underlines the fact that his relationship with Lebris is strong. He didn't fail in Serie A, but he didn't set the place alight. So that might just put one or two of the stronger sides off him. I agree, though, that if he did go, he'd perhaps be the hardest one to replace because he's phenomenal in so many different positions. As for other areas, I can't see somebody like Mukiele or Aldrete going because they're slightly older. I think Sunderland were quite clever in that the players, they knew that if they spent money on the defence, that would give them a really strong chance of succeeding in this division. So the profile was slightly different. Our forwards, there were more projects, there were ones for the future, there were unpolished gems, whereas at the back, it was, get lads who've done it before. So I think the likes of Mukiele and that will stay. And if somebody was to leave, it would be somebody like Roofs or Siddiqui, who are still in the early stages of the progress.
Siddiqui was I was going to touch on him if you didn't. Did either of you listen to David Jones on Phil Smith's YouTube channel this week? Really good interview. People should definitely check that out. It's on the Sunderland Echo's YouTube channel. But Phil Smith spoke to Dave Jones, and he was talking about Siddiqui, and he said somebody in I think it was Brentford he mentioned. Somebody at Brentford had said to him, how on earth did you get Siddiqui for that price? There were teams, and we kind of said this in the summer, Sunderland went out and bought players who other teams just weren't prepared to go that little bit further with. Maybe you overpaid, and you'd probably say we probably did overpay for Diarra because he's not quite there yet. But these are players who other clubs will have been looking at, and they were a bit unsure on, should we put 28 million on Siddiqui or whatever he cost? I don't know what he cost. But you know what I mean? There were a lot of cases of that where we took the gamble on these players. And I think now that they've proven themselves in the Premier League, that might well supercharge maybe not your Brentfords, because I don't think we're going to be losing players to Brentford. They're technically a competitor at the minute. But that tier up, they're going to be looking at Noah Siddiqui, they're going to be looking at Robin Roofs, and they're probably the ones I would say the club are probably well aware we're going to be facing big bids for some of these lads.
I take your point. And yeah, you might not see those exact individuals go to Brentford, but perhaps now, if in the summer there is a player we're looking at who Brentford have also tracked, they might now not be as cautious about bringing them in now. So even the success of lads who are already here could impact who doesn't come in over the summer. Siddiqui, though, I think Siddiqui and Roofs probably are the biggest ones, and I would just if that happens, I would just have to remind myself that we coped when Ross Stewart went, we coped when Bellingham went, we coped when Jack Clark went. If we do have one big sale, and that gives us the wiggle room in terms of financial restrictions to improve again, we'll just have to live with it.
Yeah. On the subject of Robin Roofs, Jonny, we've had this one from Ryan Evans. He says, with Robin Roofs most likely gone after this season, are you comfortable with Elborg being the starting keeper? or do you want a better replacement? Like we just talked about that. I think none of us would be shocked if Robin Roofs went, and I certainly don't want to see him leave. But he is a player where you go, oh, you can easily see him going for 60, 70 million, and teams couldn't complain or balk at the price because he is that good. But I guess Ryan's question is less about Roofs and more about, are we comfortable with Melker Elborg being that replacement, or do you think the club would go out and spend money on a probably a better player essentially?
So there's a couple of things I want to touch on here. Firstly, I think you both spoke really, really well about the recruitment and the sort of knock-on effects and stuff. I think that's all really accurate. And with that in mind, I'd be shocked if Roofs is still here next season. Like, he, to me, is the one that is going to go, because the goalkeeper market as well is not exactly awash with top quality, and everyone needs a keeper. It feels like everyone's always after a keeper, bar about 4 or 5 teams in Europe. So yeah, with that in mind, I expect him to go. In terms of the replacement, it is interesting. So firstly, let's just I think we can all say that we would sign somebody if Roofs goes. Now, who that would be is obviously, don't ask me. I'm not as good as Sunderland's recruitment team and identifying talent on the continent. But the question would be, would we bring in somebody to be the Roofs replacement or the Elborg replacement, if you know what I mean? Does Elborg bump up to number 1 and somebody comes in behind him? Do we bring somebody in as a senior option? I mean, God knows. In terms of Elborg, I think I'd almost flip the question and say, how comfortable would everyone have been at the idea of Roofs being our number 1 all season before they watched him play? We've barely seen anything from Elborg, really. He made that amazing save against Brighton, but then he was also kind of done a bit easily at his near post with a bit of a weird goal. So we've seen some good shots stopping. We've seen maybe some slightly more questionable moments. Doesn't look the best with the ball at his feet, but at the same time, he probably wasn't expecting to play any football really in the league this season. So I don't think we can make a judgment on him yet, really, either way. I think we've seen enough to think that he's clearly got some talent. And I think we've seen enough to know that he's not, let's say that Roofs does go and that either we don't replace him or whoever we bring in is the understudy and Elborg's number 1 next season. I think we've seen enough to know that he's not going to embarrass himself. We're not going to be conceding 80 goals and getting relegated with record low points, but he isn't Robin Roofs. And that's the question. And listen, the club will be well aware of this. If we're aware of it, sat here talking on a bloody podcast, they'll know. They'll need to assess Elborg, and they'll internally make a decision on whether they think he's at the same kind of quality level as Roofs, or can he get there next season? And we all know they're quite ruthless. If they look at him over the summer and think, actually, now we've got you in the building, we're not 100% sure, they'll go and they'll replace him. So my underlying point is essentially, whoever's number 1 at the start of next season, we know the club trusts them, and we know the club's judgment is good. So whoever it is, I'm going to be completely comfortable with it because they know what they're doing. Like Andrew said before as well, with the replacements, they've proven they know what they're doing. Jack Clark, Stewart, etc., etc., etc. Joe Bellingham, list of players here who we've successfully replaced. If Robin Roofs goes, it'll be another name on that list. If Siddiqui goes, it'll be another name on that list, and we've got to just trust that they'll do the right thing.
Yeah. My suspicion would be that we'd just go out and spend a similar amount of money. We were being quoted like 25 million for some of the keepers we were in for in the summer. The recruitment's good. We will go out and get somebody, and we would provide Elborg with quality competition, which is what you need in the Premier League. You need 2 good players in every position, don't you? So that kind of segues us nicely into the next question for you, Andrew, which is from Michael Bowers, and he says, how do you think Sunderland will approach the summer window, both in terms of spend, potential sales and positions targeted? I know we've just touched on their players we think might potentially leave, but yeah, I mean, let's assume Robin Roofs scores, right? We are probably going to spend a fair amount of money replacing him because he would bring in a fair amount of money. So, we would have budget to play with there. I know the cost control measures the rules are changing slightly over the summer, but from what we're led to believe, they still lend favourably for Sunderland because we've operated at such a sustainable level for a long time. And yes, the spend last summer was high, but that is weighed up against the massive amount of money that comes with being a Premier League football club. Probably still got a relatively decent looking wage bill. We'll have increased that significantly when we, got promoted. I'm sure Granit Xhaka's not on a tenner a week, but we'll still. The point is I reckon, and this is just a pure guess from me, and I've got no basis for this. But my guess would be we're still going to be in a healthy position in the summer to spend money if we need to, and player sales would ultimately assist with that, wouldn't it?
They would, but my understanding, like yourself, it's limited. My understanding is that the sales aren't necessary to keep the lights on. The sales would just give us the freedom and the permission to spend money that we actually have access to.
It's just worth mentioning
on the radio last week, didn't he? Gasolfi said that when he was on BBC Newcastle last week. He was basically asked that question by, I think it was Nick Barnes, had said, do Sunderland have to sell players to keep the wheels turning? And he said no, but we understand that we are not the final destination for players. We kind of sell them Sunderland on the basis of you come here and you can do very well, and your next move is a big move. So it's kind of part of our identity at the moment.
It's also worth mentioning that PSR is ending. PSR profit and sustainability rules, that's being replaced by SCR, which is squad cost ratio, I think, something like that. It's obviously rules aimed at doing similar things, financial fair play and whatever, but that will obviously affect us differently in terms of how the sales are accounted for, what it means we can do with the money going forward. So it's not as simple as not the PSR was simple at all, but it's not necessarily as simplistic in terms of player trading. But yeah, please continue.
Yes, Andrew. Andrew, I totally cut over you there. Sorry, mate. You give me your thoughts.
No, not at all. It's important that we remember all these things. And the phrase "final destination" for players, that is something we're going to have to bear in mind, whether we like it or not. Some of the players we have come here because they've been told that they could move on and that we won't stand in their way. So we can't change the goalposts on them, and we can't now be saying in the summer, hey, stand up for ourselves and tell these clubs to F off. If we've made commitments to players, we need to see them through, because that underpins a lot of our work in the transfer market. My understanding, though, like yours, Gav, is that the books seem to be okay, and accounts over the last few years suggest that we're being run sensibly. That does have an impact on what we do in the summer. Going back to what Gasolfi said, I think we're in a position now where we're not going to see another mad summer of double figures in terms of arrivals. It's going to be sensible, maybe 3 or 4 quality additions, unless we're in Europe, and that changes things. I mean, I tell you what, if we do make Europe, we are an attractive prospect for players. And we're talking about what do we do with Elborg if Ruth moves on? Well, there's a lad playing at Everton who might not mind a trip coming back to Sunderland. And if Sunderland have got European ambitions, are they any worse off than his current club?
Oh, D&D this towards him, Andrew.
Wishful thinking, I know, and I know that's a bit romantic of me, but
you've got us dreaming of Pickford, Ahmad, bloody Ross Stewart, all coming back, reunite the boys,
Pickford,
man.
Exactly. Pickford is in his early 30s, though. So if you do think Elborg's a long-term option but needs a bit more work, it might not be Pickford, but a senior goalkeeper isn't out of the question. A lot of the players we've had this season are now a year on in their progress. So the club will have looked at the stats, and nobody's nailed down our position on the left wing. Nobody's nailed down our position on the right wing. But the club might have seen enough to suggest that somebody has done their work and can now be ready for that step up. So yeah, the original question was, I think, Gav, are we looking at wholesale changes, or is it just 1 or 2? And do we have the finances to do it? I think, yeah, we've got finances now to just buy 3 or 4 quality additions maybe add in a couple of prospects to work on, because we're always doing that. We always like having the replacement in the door before lads move on. And I can't wait. I think this summer recruitment could be really exciting. We look to be in a really good position to go at it, and we're building from strength rather than desperation.
Yeah. We've had a few around off-field changes. We'll quickly rattle through these. John Harrison says this, Johnny, is it of any concern the amount of changes being made behind the scenes? Régis has seen his backroom constantly change, with Ribeiro and then Vulcano leaving, and we have obviously lost Speakman and David Bruce. Too much in a short space of time? What do you think?
I go back and forth on this quite a lot, actually, because I think about this every time there's news about anyone coming or going at the club. Really, I end up kind of considering, like, you know, it's constant catch-22 in football, isn't it? And it's kind of the same with the playing squad. It's like you spend all that time and money assembling a squad, and, you know, you've got your best 11. You know, you've got your subs, and you've got all your players, and, you know, they're all at the right ages, and they've got the profiles that complement each other, and it's like, right, I've built this squad, and they're winning games. Now what do we do? Do we try and keep it the same? Do we try and revamp it? Do we a bit of continual, like, you know, a little drip feeding of players coming in and out? You know, it's hard to manage, isn't it? It's something that made Alex Ferguson such a legendary manager, was how well he constantly refreshed his teams over such a long time, because it's so hard to do. You know, building one team is difficult enough, never mind knowing how and when to change it. And I don't really think the principles are much different when it comes to the infrastructure and the backroom staff at a club. Obviously, they're different to football players, but the principles, I think, are similar, where you kind of, you work so hard as Kirill Louis-Dreyfus to build in the structure that you want into the club, and you get, you know, whoever it is that we've had in these positions, Stuart Harvey, Christian Speakman, David Bruce, I mean, Ribeiro and Vulcano, the assistant managers, you know, whatever it is, you get these people in place, they're doing good work, the club's succeeding, things are going well, and then you hit the same decision point and you go, now what do we do? Like, do we just constantly try and improve and innovate and, you know, keep up with the times? Do we stick with what we've got? Because if you stick with what you've got too much, then you run into another problem of, well, then do we become overly dependent on this system that we've built and these specific people? You know, then after a while, is it like, well, if any of them go, how are we going to cope? You know, is it better to be constantly changing so that you don't become stale? And it's impossible, isn't it? You never know until you do it, and then you see how it actually works. So I think I would lean towards the side, personally, this is just like my own opinion, I would lean towards trying to keep the overall structure quite similar, but I think we've got to treat the personnel as disposable, essentially. Which sounds a little bit harsh. I don't mean it quite as you know, thoughtlessly as that. Just like, all right, well, you're gone now. You know, get out, piss off. But I think we've seen enough evidence now from the club that it's the process or the structure or the role that any particular person is fulfilling that's what's important. It isn't the person in particular, other than Kirill himself, because obviously the owner is the owner. Everybody else, it's all about what they can do and not who they are. And I think as a fan base, it's probably better if we get our heads around that sooner rather than later, because we're going to have to come to terms with it. So may as well accept it and embrace it rather than kind of fighting against it every time it happens.
Yeah, well, it's that ruthlessness which kind of defines the departure of David Bruce. I know we did a full pod on this, the three of us, so we're kind of probably repeating things that we said on that pod. So if you didn't hear it, you can go back listen to the reaction pod that we did when the news dropped about David Bruce leaving the club. But Alan Davis says this, Andrew. He says, we know KLD can be ruthless, but why do you think David Bruce is leaving the club? Now, this one is difficult to answer. We don't actually know, really. I mean, it wasn't spelled out to us in the statement. We haven't heard anything. In reply to Alan's message to us, there were quite a lot of interesting theories passed back and forth. You know, some people saying commercial income's dropped a fair bit year to year, and he is involved on that side of things. It wouldn't surprise you, would it, if it's as basic as that, really? We talk about all of the lovely things that us as fans have been in receipt of, because I've been a massive fan of what David Bruce has done at Sunderland. But at corporate level, it's the pounds and pennies that count, and it may well be something like that. But importantly, we don't know, Andrew, do we? We can only speculate, but I think I just keep coming back to this point about how ruthless they are. And if it's been viewed he's not doing something that they want him to do, they don't care that he's a Sunderland fan. They just want somebody to drive growth and bring as much money into the club as possible, and all these things which, unfortunately, are very, very important in business.
Well, that's the word. It's business. It is a business, and it needs to run like one in most instances. And yeah, as fans, we love that he was a local lad and here come the bunny, he has got us. But does getting us as fans and making us smile count as much as money? I think there's probably a bit of both, and for fans to be part of this journey, you need to feel like you're not being taken for granted, but it's only part of the journey. And maybe there's figures behind in the background that we're not privy to that suggest that other areas need to improve. We don't know, and we'll perhaps not know until after the summer when this whole revamp is finalised. Because at the moment, the guy's name's Tom Burwell. He is only he is only in an interim position, so there's potentially different roles to be created and different people having different responsibilities. Maybe it was a case of how they envisage these new roles. They don't think Bruce would fit in as well as he does now. It's all guesswork. It's like the same with Vulcano. We just have to guess based on the information that we get. Now, Vulcano, for example, doesn't particularly worry me because he was only here for a short period. It might be that he came and he didn't settle. It might be that he came and what they thought he was going to do wasn't necessary because Bloomin' Granit Xhaka does it now. We'll never know. And the club are very professional at keeping all of these things in-house. They're never going to say, we've let somebody go because he was crap. They'll just say the right things and do it professionally. So some changes happen just because we're a large-scale business. The Bruce one is different to me because it's the first time where I haven't seen an obvious reason why it's happened. You could see with Stuart Harvey, you could see with Speakman that they'd done brilliantly, but the club were in different positions. Bruce is different, but Bruce isn't connected to the football side of things. So how are we as fans going to fully understand that side of things? And all we can do is thank these people, wish them well, and going off what we've seen in the past, assume that the people coming in and the tweaks to the system are going to work. It's not like in the past. It's not like with Ellis Short where he just had an open checkbook and everything in terms of structure seemed to be slapdash. You've said that at the top, Kirill Louis-Dreyfus has always had a way of doing things. It's not failed us so far. There's no reason to suggest it's going to fail us now.
One last one on David Bruce for you, Johnny. Michael Conroy says, David Bruce leaving looks like a fairly brutal instance of evolution. Not a bad thing, but if we are constantly shifting, how do they maintain the family spirit at the club they have been so successful in nurturing?
Well, that's $1 million question, isn't it? I suppose we'll kind of see, won't we, in the long run now, just how much of that was driven by David Bruce. If it's true that a lot of it was coming directly from him, then we'll probably see a reduction in that if the next guy doesn't share those same sort of fundamentals and beliefs. Conversely, it might turn out that we all just sort of projected that onto David Bruce ourselves, going, well, he's a Sunderland fan and he works at the club, so he must be doing all the fan-centric stuff because he's one of us. Well, it might turn out that he wasn't that involved with it all in the first place. You never know, basically. I'm kind of repeating what you have said. You don't know. We'll see, I think. We'll start to be able to get an idea of it once the next person's in post and we start seeing the initiatives and the kind of, the deals that they're pushing forward. But it's hard. It's a difficult balance to strike. As you've said, it is business. So at the end of the day, the balance sheet has to be up there on the priority list. But so should the fans. So should the experience of being a Sunderland AFC supporter. And I worry about that. It's one of my biggest concerns with football in general is the disconnect between the bean counters and the actual football fans. Look at Jonny Infantino, the head of FIFA. I don't think he really is a football fan the same way we are and the listeners are and, the people who actually go to games every week. And he's in charge of the whole sport. So if they kind of get it right, it's going to be tricky for us to get it right.
You just reminded me of completely off topic this. Have you seen the video of the guy who basically runs McDonald's eating a McDonald's?
Yes.
Went viral. And it's like people have basically seen this video and went, there's no way he's ever ate a McDonald's. I kind of feel like that about Jonny Infantino. I don't think he likes football.
There's no way he's ever sat in a normal fan seat in a football stadium and watched a game properly. No chance. I won't believe it.
It is a serious point, and definitely in our last Premier League era, the club suffered for not having enough people who cared about the club. Now, I'm not on about seeing birth certificates and old gold cards to say, oh yeah, you're a legitimate Sunderland fan. But you certainly need people who respect the club and don't take it for granted. And I don't know, bizarrely, Charlie Methven had a bit of a point when he said, there were too many people.
Oh, where we're going with this one.
Too many people at the club who didn't give a nick. Now, I'm not talking about...
Fair enough, Andrew, you were right there.
I'm not talking about
we can all log back onto the ready-to-go forum, safe and sound now,
I'm not talking about the people on the ground level who were locals and that, and who did support the club or grew up supporting the club or who got a job here and fell in love with the club. But there have been at certain executive levels people who took the mick, basically. That was definitely a thing. If we are going to have a vacancy for a massive lads fan now that David Bruce, I do know of a goalkeeper based in the northwest area who might fancy coming along. He's got good distribution as well, so he fits the bill. Just a thought. Don't know where that's come from. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, I'm just a kind of round point on David Bruce. I am genuinely gutted for him, but I think this is a point we've made repeatedly and might have been missed. I don't know, but I think we all have faith in the club to get whatever they're going to do next right, and and David Bruce has done some brilliant things. It might just be that he's laid the groundwork for other people to thrive in his place. Now he's gone. And one of those things which kind of segues us into one of the final questions that we've got was Legends Way, which is coming up soon. We're going to see the first part of Legends Way when we head to the Stadium of Light for the Nottingham Forest game. The lettering will be up on the stand saying welcome to Sunderland, and that's definitely got David Bruce's fingerprints all over it. Lad of Light has said, with the announcement of the Legends Way and the erecting of the Jimmy Montgomery statue, who would you want to see as the next statue outside of the ground, if at all? Andrew, I'll come to you first on that one. We'll all have a pop of this one, I think. If you could have a statue of anyone, who would it be?
That's a tricky one. There is a pod coming out in maybe tomorrow, isn't there, Gav, or a couple of days' time?
Yeah, so people listening to this will have probably already heard what you've got to say about that one. Spoiler alert: we pre-record episodes, people. So
I'll be listening.
Time is linear, by the way, guys. So we have to record them before they come out, just in case you didn't know.
I'll be listening back to that one to see what I said, because that question has caught me on the hop. But in general terms, we did feel that there's a lot of space for the club to recognise a whole raft of different people and different eras and aspects of the support. So certainly I hope this isn't the end of it. I hope there is more in the pipeline in terms of reflecting our identity.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and this is something David Bruce was big on with the naming of the Jimmy Montgomery stand. I think it's important that if the people are still with us, that we want to showcase that we do it while they're still with us. And I know when you can probably find this out there somewhere, but when Niall Quinn left the club, I started a petition to get a stand named after him. It gathered pace and all that, and I ended up on the bloody radio and the telly and all sorts because this thing just went crazy. But at that time, I was dead passionate about like getting a stand named after Niall Quinn, and the feedback from him was that he was a bit too humble basically and didn't want anything named. But maybe that was a long time ago now. I think Niall Quinn deserves a statue, if I'm honest. He's one of many, but I would love Niall Quinn to. I know that we've got Quinn's Bar, but it's not the point. I think there needs to be a proper, because that guy saved the club at that time and he didn't have to do it. And he pulled together a lot of rich people. And yeah, the Ellis Short era didn't end well, but his group brought Ellis Short to the table. And, it was important for us at the time and beyond that, you know what I mean? He made himself manager because we couldn't appoint one. It didn't go well, but that was the level of commitment the guy had. Fantastic servant as a player, gave us so many great memories with the money raised from his testimonial, which wasn't the given thing at the time. Helped to open a new unit at Sunderland Hospital for children. And I think that's now become more of a thing, like with testimonials and stuff. Players will give back to charity, but it wasn't the given thing at the time. I just think there's so many things about Niall Quinn where he really does deserve a permanent memorial, which isn't a bar. I know he likes a Guinness, but, something a bit more visible when you're around the ground. But as you said, Andrew, I think there were plenty of other people you could make cases for and would be fair. The founder of the club, James Allen, would be one that I would consider,
Quinn is you're dead right. Quinn is would be my choice. But I think even having that bar named after him, I think he had to have his arm twisted just to agree with it. So humble is the word with him. But yeah, if he didn't have any reservations about it, Quinn all day for me.
Yeah. What about you, Johnny? Any other names you'd like to chuck in the ring?
Not a statue necessarily, but Kevin Ball, I think, should be.
Yeah.
He deserves something. Again, like a little bit similar to Quinn, not in terms of scale, but like the amount of times he's sort of come back and done jobs at the club and, caretaker manager and ambassador stuff and all that. Like he's put a lot of his life and his heart and soul into Sunderland. And I think, it would be good value for something to remember him. Well, I'm saying remember him. I mean, he's still with us, but current players, not right now, but Luke O'Nien has to, like, I know that it's almost a bit of a joke
now.
Like, he is Mr. Sunderland. What is he on now? Over 300 appearances for us across the top 3 divisions. Derby wins and Wembley wins and come on,
maybe one for 20 years' time when he's led us to the Premier League title as manager.
Well, a little bit like these players. Sorry, Andrew, I will let you talk in a sec. Sorry, but like you say about Quinn and like I was just saying about Bawley there, I think a lot of what goes into it is when they come back and they keep giving and like if they're always willing to answer when called upon, that shows that they really do love the club, and I think that is a big thing, a big part of what would make somebody worthy of being remembered.
Quinn and Ball both fit into that role of players who didn't just play for us. They always pick up the phone. They always remember Sunderland. I feel really bad now because you've made a great point and I was just going to be, as I often want to do, I was going to be an idiot and say, if you want to pay tribute to Kevin Ball, what better way than by bringing back a player he nurtured through the youth teams, who happens to be playing in the Northwest at the moment,
Does he happen to be a fan of a certain genre of music that tends to be played in sort of like electro dance, like
And hey, if he was picking the music in the changing rooms before kick-off, we would storm up the league, I reckon.
We'd be starting games quickly, that's for sure.
Well, that's it. I mean, just on statues, I think a great example of it would be the Emirates. They've got so many around there, and
Man City
all
as well
from
have
different
done something
eras.
similar.
Yeah. I think that's what I would like to see. I would like to see, you know, you can do a full lap of the stadium and there's stuff everywhere relating to our history, the players, everything, our identity as a football club. Hopefully this is just the start, but I think there's room for Niall Quinn, Kevin Ball, Kevin Phillips, Rach Carter, Bobby Gurney, all the great managers we've had, James Allen, the founder of the football club, and you could go on and on and on. I think there's room for all. It costs a lot of money, by the way, but I think in the long term that it's important that you have these things. We want future generations, when they come to the Stadium of Light, to go, oh, that's Bob Stokoe, that's Jimmy Montgomery, that's Kevin Ball, that's Gary Bennett. These things are really, really important, I think, and hopefully this is the start of, I guess, what's to come. There's quite a lot you can do with it, and it's about more than just naming bars and things like that. I think I would love to see a lot more done. Last one on the stadium, and I guess the last one for today, from Paul Summerside, and I'll come to you on this one, Johnny. It might be a quick answer, this one. Do you think we should increase the capacity of the Stadium of Light as soon as possible, or is it something that can wait till we are established in the Premier League? Revenue is everything these days.
Definitely don't do it yet. I think it's something that we should be looking at with an eye on doing it if and when.
I think we are, by the way, because you saw them newly submitted plans not long ago.
Yeah, the sheepfold stuff.
Yeah. So it's something you've got to have in your back pocket, isn't it?
100%. What the club should be doing is essentially try and be ready at all times to be able to just pull the trigger if they want to. And then you're in a position where if it becomes clear that actually, yes, it is the time, we want to do this, the demand's there, let's go, then you've got your ducks in a row. But I don't think we should rush into it yet because, this season's been amazing and we're going to stay up, and I hope we'll stay up and don't ever go down again. But it can change quickly in football, and the last thing you want to be doing is be mid-expansion with getting relegated. So let's just give it a few years yet.
Well, we were successful in answering every single question at time of recording, so well done to us. I think we've managed to nail it today. Thank you very much, chaps, and thanks for joining us as always. You too. Been great.
Pleasure all mine, mate.
Yeah. Thank you to the listeners, and thank you, of course, to everybody who sent in questions. If you want to get in on the next Q&A pod, which I'll imagine will be sort of middle of next week, make sure you look out for the post we put out on X, or just email us, as I said at the top of the show, howaythepodcast, SAFC@gmail.com. You can get the email address if you're prone to forgetting things like I am from the show notes of every episode, so just ping us an email. I know that people seem to be quite enjoying emailing us at the minute, which is pretty cool. Nice hearing from you all, so thank you very much for sending your emails and questions. We will be back in the next couple of days with preview stuff leading up to that Spurs game, so make sure you get subscribed if you're not already. And thank you very, very much for joining us. We'll see you later.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.